More and more authority in the world in which we live. Should we recognize international law? And what are the consequences? What happens when international law contradicts U.S. law? Which should prevail? We'll talk about it today on Politics and Religion.
Look, there are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it. Well, over the weekend, there was quite a development in the Middle East. The Goldstone Report, which was issued concerning Israel's action against Gaza, that was called the caste-led offenses. Well, all of that was reversed over the weekend because Goldstone now says that he does not believe Israel purposely targeted civilians. Originally, he thought Israel had done so. This brought Israel under a lot of scrutiny, and even some people believing that Israeli officials would be hauled before the International Criminal Court and placed on trial there. All of this being done, of course, under the guise of international law. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear more about international law, not less. But most of us are relatively uneducated when it comes to international law. What do we mean about international law? Should we have it at all? Is it good? Is it bad? Do you have to have an international government to have international law? I mean, these are questions that need to be asked. And when international law conflicts with national law, which one will prevail? All very critical questions because international law is raising its head in our world and asserting itself. Let me give you a few examples. I already mentioned the Goldstone Report and how that many people in Israel felt like some of the leaders of Israel at the time were subject to be placed on trial. I'm talking about Ehud Olmert. I'm talking about Zippy Livni. I mean, Zippy Livni had to cancel a trip to Great Britain because she was in danger of being arrested and imprisoned there. Now, we're talking about an Israeli foreign minister. I don't know whether that would have happened or not, but she apparently thought the danger was big enough that she canceled her trip. So when we talk about international law, what are we talking about? International law has normally been formulated by the signing of treaties. There have been treaties over the last 100, 150 years, the Genocide Treaty, different human rights treaties that have been implemented, and the signatories to these treaties then are bound by these treaties. Now, it is normally contended that treaty is the highest form of law in the land. So if a government signs a treaty with another government, then all of the laws of that government that signed the treaty must be altered to comply with the terms of the treaty. If there are any laws that are in conflict, then those laws must be brought into line with international law, which has been created by a national government signing a treaty with another national government or with another international entity. Okay, now before your eyes glaze over, let's see what this really means. If international law reaches its full power, as is envisioned by its champions, the day will come when the international community could issue a warrant for your arrest and the United States government would have to deliver you up. You say, well, I'm not worried about that. I'm not going to get arrested for anything. Well, let's just say that you would decide to say something against homosexuality. If you're a person who believes the Bible, and the Bible teaches that homosexuality is an abomination before God, if you verbalize that in public and you were heard saying that, there is a move on right now to create international law that would make it against the law to say anything negative about homosexuals or homosexuality. So if you were heard and someone recorded you or someone was willing to witness against you, they took their case to the International Criminal Court, and all of a sudden the government of the United States of America was issued a summons that they were to deliver you up for trial before the International Criminal Court. You say, this is being ludicrous. It is ridiculous. This will never happen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's already happened. Already, there are 2 sitting heads of state. One of them, a warrant has already been issued for his arrest. The other one is under investigation for the possibility of prosecution. Of course, I'm speaking of Mr. al-Bashir of Sudan, who already has been issued a warrant for his arrest. He's avoiding arrest by staying within the borders of his own country right now. The UN is not quite strong enough to go in yet and to pluck the president of Sudan away and haul him off to The Hague for trial. Nevertheless, that's where they intend to go for certain. And if he would cross a border that recognizes the International Criminal Court, then they would be duty-bound because they signed on to the treaty to arrest Mr. al-Bashir on the spot and to send him off to the International Criminal Court for trial. Of course, we saw Mr. Milosevic placed on trial before the World Court. Now then, Mr. Gaddafi, already the world community, the United Nations Security Council, has recommended to the International Criminal Court that they would launch a prosecutorial investigation as to whether there is adequate grounds to try Mr. Gaddafi on the grounds of crimes against humanity or other war crimes. Okay, now what's going on here? I mean, 50 years ago, to have people put on trial by the world community before an international criminal court was almost unthinkable. However, now then, it's almost assumed. So let's make sure we complete our little investigation. Let's say you say something against homosexuality. It is an offense to international law, the International Declaration on Human Rights or whatever. And so they come and get you and haul you off for trial at The Hague in Holland before the International Criminal Court. Now, don't forget, you will not have the protection of the U.S. Constitution nor the Bill of Rights because that's national law. This is international law. It appears that international law is going to trump national law. So consequently, when we see what's happening, for example, this article, the Palestinian Authority still intends to pursue Israeli war crimes at the UN and at the ICC. Now remember, neither the Palestinians nor Israel are signatories to the ICC. They didn't sign that treaty. But yet, because the treaty was implemented with over 60 signatures, the treaty is claiming the force of international law, and the world community is backing it up. The UN Security Council has recommended to the ICC that they arrest Mr. Gaddafi. And yet 3 of the 5 members of the UN Security Council have never even signed on to the International Criminal Court. So this is almost creating law by consent rather than by legal process. So what are we really talking about? Let's break it down to its essence. We're talking about world government. We're talking about a world government that could arrest our president, our Secretary of Defense, our Secretary of State, or you, or anybody. that was suspected of the violation of any form of international law. Now, right now, the crimes prosecutable before the ICC include genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the one that they plan to be able to try is crimes of aggression. They've now put it off until 2017 to define that, because what that really is intended to mean is any nation that takes a military action against another nation, watch this, without the approval of the UN Security Council would be guilty of a crime of aggression. So what's this mean? This means that the UN Security Council runs the world. That's what it means. This means that we are in one world government. Now, did you notice that President Obama did not seek for a declaration of war from the U.S. Congress before attacking Libya? Did you notice what he did seek? He sought a resolution from the UN Security Council. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm knocking here. Wake up time. Wake up time. When the President of the United States of America ignores Congress and yet goes before the world governmental system called the United Nations, and do not forget, that's exactly what it is. It was designed from the beginning to be a one world government. And so he ignores the Congress, says, I don't care what the Constitution says. I do not care that the Constitution says that military action must be preceded by a congressional declaration of war. I don't pay attention to that anymore. That's outdated. What I pay attention to is the world government structure we've set up, and they voted to allow us to go in against Gaddafi, and so we are going. Okay. Now, I'm not exaggerating. This is just what we witnessed. The bombs are falling on Libya as I speak because the world government authorized the action which the United States of America was biting at the bit to go perform anyway. But we were able to use our influence. Now, a lot of nations would have never been able to carry it off, but because the United States is the #1 contributor at the UN, and because we are the world's #1 military power, we have a tremendous amount of influence at the UN Security Council. And so we were able to push through what we wanted to push through. So Mr. Gaddafi felt the wrath of international law. Now, that's not all that happened, because I'm reading an article today that the U.S. had decided it was pulling out of the situation, going to depend totally on NATO to take care of it. However, after we did that a day or two, NATO suddenly realizes that without the U.S., they do not have the ability to bomb the troops on the ground of Mr. Gaddafi. Now, we're not supposed to be bombing on the ground, but yet it says right in the article that we're going to have to stay a few more days until NATO can get the right kind of planes in there. Now, they can shoot planes out of the air, but they can't hit troops on the ground, and that's what the U.S. is doing right now. I think we're exceeding the UN mandate right now.
Endtime Ministries presents End of the Age, a 30-minute commercial-free TV show hosted by Irvin Baxter. Every Monday, End of the Age airs on the Church Channel at 9 p.m., Daystar at 10 p.m., and on TBN every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., all Central Standard Time. On End of the Age, Irvin depicts how modern issues like an establishment of a one-world government, the religion of Islam, a coming World War III, and more line up so clearly with Bible prophecies written over 2,000 years ago. To get tomorrow's news today, be sure to tune into End of the Age every Monday on the Church Channel at 9 p.m., Daystar at 10 p.m., and on TBN every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., all Central Standard Time. Visit endtime.com for more details or call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463.
The Bible prophesies